We now have with us Mark Linscott, former Assistant USTR and Senior Advisor at the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, joining us live on this broadcast. Thank you very much, Mr. Linscott, for taking the time out. It's always a pleasure having you and getting your thoughts and opinions on, some of the most critical stories of the day. Now, when we talk about the conversation that both the leaders had, they both took stock of the agreeable and disagreeable points, but there was also talk alongside the other aspects of the India-US relation and, of course, on other geopolitical aspects as well. But in your opinion, given the optics, what was this call primarily aimed at?
Well, it's hard to assess other than we know that there was a warm, engaging exchange between the two leaders. There's plenty to discuss. Certainly, I think top of the agenda has got to be trade. I mean, that's where we've got a lot of actions that are imminent in terms of trade negotiations and hopefully a trade deal. I think they've been making progress on the defense front and defense purchases. There are many geopolitical issues that the two have shared interest in, and I understand that they engaged on those. So it's a large agenda, and it's important that they are talking on a regular basis.
Mark, in your earlier conversations, you'd stated that a direct conversation between PM Modi and Trump is crucial to clear the air and set terms for the deal. Given the recent warm and engaging phone call, do you believe that the necessary groundwork for a leader-level breakthrough has been laid, or are there still technical details left for, some of the major roadblocks that we are facing to go through this?
Well, thank you, Shivani. It's important that the two leaders talk. When I made that point, that was several months ago. We were in a very different point in U.S. trade policy, reciprocal tariffs involving a lot of countries. There had been expectations for a U.S.-India trade deal at that time, and those efforts were reversed. The situation went south very quickly, and that was highly unfortunate. So it appeared that it was very necessary for there to be a leader-level conversation to set things back on track. The negotiations have been set back on track. They've been engaging the two sides, particularly USTR and the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, have been engaging at all levels over the last couple of months. I understand that they've been making progress in the negotiations. What we haven't seen yet is the big breakthrough, and that may have to come from leaders. The discussion that they had yesterday did not result in an immediate announcement of a trade deal. I'm not sure what happens next. I think we are all engaging in educated guessing at this point in time. Hopefully, there's been progress in the discussions that took place in Delhi this week. At this point in time, what's clear that needs to be done is a lifting of the penalty tariffs associated with Russian oil and a understanding on what will be the new reciprocal tariff if a trade deal is struck. And that's up to the president. And I think only Prime Minister Modi can convince him to move forward on those issues. Hopefully they made progress in their discussions yesterday.
Absolutely, Mr. Linscott, and that really is the hope of all the businesses, of course, policy makers on the United States side and on the Indian side as well. But let's also look at some of the statements that have been coming in from the U.S. administration. Well, there's been mixed messaging so far that India's offer is the best that the United States has ever received. However, there are concerns related to market access and agri. Again, Minister Goel, in fact, yesterday also stated that if the USTR is indeed so happy with the offer, they should sign on the dotted line. So the big question now arises, and of course, from the messaging that Minister Goel has given, is the fact that the United States is perhaps not very happy. What is really holding the deal back from getting signed and getting green signal by President Trump?
Yeah, I think the U.S. side is definitely encouraged by developments. And Jameson Greer, the U.S. Trade Representative, referenced that in his testimony before the Appropriations Committee in the Congress earlier this week. He was very positive. I think in referring to the best offer from India, it was a reference to the best offer that the United States has received specifically from India. It was not referencing any other country or any other trade negotiation. In terms of signing on the dotted line, I don't think there's a dotted line yet. A dotted line on an agreement would be a fully fledged, fully negotiated, concluded legal text of an agreement. And the two sides have been working on that, but it's pretty clear that they still have details to work out. What I think would be a very positive development at this point in time is for there to be the big gesture. It's clear that India has come forward with very strong proposals across the board. There may be still some fine points to work out, but a big gesture that really gets the attention of the president makes a difference. And we've seen this in every single trade deal that the Trump administration has struck. President Trump is the trade negotiator in chief. He likes those big gestures from other countries, and those other countries have figured it out. Most recently, I think Switzerland, we have a situation in which Swiss private sector.
Since you mentioned this big gesture has been instrumental in striking these deals with other nations, what, according to you, will that big gesture be, since you have been a part of the former negotiating teams as well? If you can give us an understanding.
Yeah, what I can say is that what I don't think it necessarily has to be is a commitment on large investments in the United States. I mean, that's been a factor in many of the other trade deals. It's involved rich nations. It's involved very developed nations like Japan, Korea, the European Union. Obviously, India is not in that situation. It has a growing economy. It will soon be the third largest economy in the world, but on a per capita GDP basis, it's not necessarily in a position to commit to investments in the United States. But there are other things that can be done. For example, and I think serving the interests of India, to commit to purchases of ethanol or a sustainable aviation fuel, where there is a real need. There are mandates to blend fuels for ethanol. That's expected to grow over the future. So some commitment to make some purchases of those kinds of products would, I think, get the president's attention and probably get to the point where this deal could be struck and announced.
Right, Mark, let me also ask you, since we're talking about, how soon the deal gets a seal, and of course we did see the commentary that came in from India's chief economic advisor as well. But is the Trump administration looking at an early win for Ambassador-designate Sergio Gore when he assumes office? And do you anticipate that is when that perhaps the United States and India could be looking at giving a green signal to the package deal?
I think that's an important factor. I'm sure Sergio Gore, the new U.S. ambassador to India, would like to see that done. That would be a great welcome gift when he does arrive in Delhi early in 2026. I understand that will be in early January of the coming year. I do think that can provide motivation, momentum, and impetus for announcement of a trade deal. Frankly, I'd like to see it happen sooner than that. But we've been waiting with bated breath for some time now, so it's very hard to predict. But I do think that Sergio Gore is a big factor in this, and it could be the moment during which we see a trade deal announced.
Mark, with the mixed feels from both the sides, with the potential of continued unpredictability with regards to this deal, how can the current negotiators ensure a deal, once struck, going forward, is durable and not just subject to sudden reversals or presidential level new tariff threats?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and that's what the negotiators are working on. That's what trade negotiators do. They work on text, on legal text for agreements, so that each side trusts and understands what the commitments are, the commitments being delivered to the other side. Sometimes language has to be very precise on expectations, but that is essential. I don't think that's going to happen in the next few days. They are still working on some of the specifics of that. Ideally, we get the high-level announcement of a trade deal, and they continue their work on the specifics of a trade agreement, a legal commitment between the two sides. And that's what can make it durable. When there's precise language saying, this side will do this and the other side will do these other things, and we can depend on that going forward.
Right, Mark. And of course, sustainability of these deals is very, very critical, given the fact that the Supreme Court is, of course, hearing the matter. There's going to be another hearing early next year as well. But how critical is this deal with respect to India for the Trump administration, given the fact that, the tariffs impact has been quite critical on Americans, and that some of the other deals are not fully going through?
Yeah, it's we don't know yet what the Supreme Court is going to decide. Regardless of what the Supreme Court decides on IEEPA tariffs, the Trump administration has a plan B. If the Supreme Court strikes down that authority for tariffs, the administration is ready to use other authorities for tariffs. So tariffs are in the picture for the foreseeable future. But you rightly raise this issue of affordability. I mean, the president has denied that is an issue, but the fact that he keeps referring to it makes it clear that it's an issue. It has political sensitivities associated with it. And it's probably one reason why we've seen some degree of stability in tariffs across the board over the last weeks and month or so. We've not seen new tariffs imposed. And there have been some pending tariffs, these 232 tariffs on semiconductors and downstream products, even on pharmaceuticals. Are not yet in place, and perhaps they won't be in place because there are these concerns about the consequences for inflation and growth going forward. I'm hopeful that there are no new tariffs at this point in time. What is important is that the tariff on India come down. I mean, that's critical. That's critical, I think, for both sides, but it's having a real impact on Indian exports to the United States, and they really need to strike a deal to bring that tariff down.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mark, for giving us an understanding on the India-US trade relationship.